Hi everybody, this is Dan, the Program Director at Woldumar Nature Center, and unfortunately we are not going to be able to host our spring wildflower hikes coming up. So I still wanted everyone to get a chance to see some of our amazing spring ephemerals that are blooming here out at Woldumar. And I'm going to take you on a little hike along the Red Trail here at Woldumar along in our beech maple forest. And we're going to see some of these amazing species of plants that are growing in the forest understory. So spring ephemerals are a really cool group of plants. Their whole life is live fast and get through their reproductive as quickly as possible. So they take advantage of the early spring sun that reaches the bottom of the forest floor, because you can see all of our beautiful deciduous trees here, of course, don't have their leaves on. So as soon as those leaves come on, they block all of that sunshine that reaches the forest floor, and then these organisms don't have enough sun to photosynthesize to continue growing. So they're able to do this life cycle really fast, and I'll take you on a tour and see what we can find along the Red Trail. So some of our first things that we're seeing here are our spring beauties. They can range anywhere in color from this purple to pink to almost completely white. They have these little strap like leaves you can see here, and then 5 petals, and then the majority of them will have these pink stripes along, which let those insects know where to go pollinate. Okay, let's keep moving and see what we can find. Here's another one. We have some bloodroot here. It has this really cool, unique leaf shape. Of course, it's already done flowering for the year. It's one of the first that comes up and flowers. It has a beautiful white flower. But unfortunately, it's all done blooming for the year. Let's continue along. Such a great spring day. Okay, let's head over here. So these really cool umbrella-shaped leaves are from the May apple. And you can see right here, there's a little leaf, or between the two leaves, there is a flower forming. And so these will flower underneath the canopy of these leaves. And then they do form a little apple-shaped fruit that has some toxicity to the fruit. Some people can process it so it can be eaten, but I would advise against that because you don't need to get sick just trying something out. But really cool spring ephemeral. You can see it kind of pops up in these colonies throughout the forest floor, and it's a really important early spring pollinator as well, given those nectar sources. Oh, here we go. So I was telling you that the bloodroot blooms really early, but here's some still blooming. So we have these beautiful white flowers, of course these really cool funky leaves, and they get their name bloodroot because the sap that's in the stem here and then down in the root is a bright red and looks like blood. Also very toxic, so you do not want to mess with it. Here's one of our many species of violets. So we have Of course, the violets we think of that are the violet and purple and lavender color, but we also have white violets and yellow violets. Oh, cool. Okay, so here is another really awesome spring ephemeral. This is our beautiful trillium. Trillium for 3 Trinity, that's where it gets its name from, having the 3 leaves. And then when this flower opens up, it'll be beautifully white, and it also has 3 petals on the flower. As it ages, the flower will blush a little bit of pink. So it can add a little bit of color late in the year. The really cool thing about these species is it takes them a really long time to get old enough to be able to flower. And then once they have flowered, many of the seeds of these species are transported around by ants that help carry it around. But the trillium is a really sensitive plant since it takes so long to mature. It doesn't have enough energy if it loses these leaves to come back next year. So it's really important that these leaves don't get damaged or have any herbivory, so get eaten by a deer or something, because it won't be able to come back next year and it'll be gone forever. Okay, the next species is right down here. See these beautiful leaves that are coming up. I do not see any of the flowers just yet, but we have 2 of these species. We have Dutchman's breeches and squirrel corn. I believe this is the squirrel corn, but until it blooms, I wouldn't be able to tell you just for certain. But it does find quite a few of them around. You can see that they're all over right here. Beautiful leaves, but no flowers yet. Okay, on these areas we have another. This is beautiful white flower. Let's get focus in there. This is false ruin anemone. It's these clusters of 3 leaflets, and then a beautiful white flower. And then also over here we have the beautiful rams or wild leek. This plant has an interesting history as a plant that has been over harvested. So this spring ephemeral has been known by indigenous people for a while for being unedible, but because of the over harvesting of it, its populations have just been decimated. So of course, being Woldumar Nature Center, we are preserving the plants that are found here, and there is no harvesting on Woldumar's property. So that's why you can see that they're doing so well here, because they've been left alone and able to be in their natural environment. So the protection that we do and our members and our community does to help us preserve these habitats is so important to keeping these organisms around and the important functions that they play in the environment. After these are done blooming, done with the leaves, they will send up a white grouping of flowers that forms a little ball, and then the flowers are after the leaves are done for the year. Okay, let's continue along. Oh, see one of my favorites up here. Okay. So we have a trout lily right here. Let's turn it over so we can see its face. Here we go. So this trout lily is just a beautiful yellow flower. You can see it there with the modeling. So, and then it has these mottled leaves as well. This is a really cool species. It can take up to 7 to 14 years before this plant reaches maturity and will send up a flower. So many of you watching this might not even be that old yet, and this plant is older than you. And then it has a really cool relationship with the ants as well, like I was telling before. And so once it has been pollinated and it produces a seed, it has a little sac on it that is enticing to ants, and the ants will want to eat that and take it back to its nest, and they eat that part off, and then they leave the seed there to germinate and grow. So it's a really great relationship where these plants have found a way to get those ants to move around its seeds for it. Okay. So one more species right here, and this is the beautiful cut-leaf toothwort, and you can see a little click beetle bug on there. Check out the amazing work that Phil, one of our naturalists, has done to do an entomology lesson each Friday. He just featured these click bugs, so go check them out. But these beautiful white flowers, sometimes they blush a little bit of pink, but this cut-leaf toothwort can be found in these clusters, and you can see these leaves where it gets its name from. So one last thing that I'd like to share with you before we go today is two invasive species that we have here on the property that have the potential to really decimate our spring ephemeral wildflower population because of their status as invasive species. So we consider an invasive species something that is not native here, that has a detrimental effect either to the wildlife population here or has an economic impact, and is able to outcompete other native species because they don't have any native organisms eating them or keeping them in check. They don't have any native diseases here and things like that, so they're able just to outcompete all of the native species. And we have two of them here. So this is garlic mustard. It kind of comes up in this rosette, and you can start to see that it's sending up its flower here, and it'll be a bunch of white flowers. Garlic mustard was brought over as an herb. It is edible, so you can make a pesto out of these leaves or use them as a garnish. They have a pretty nice, actually, garlic and mustard flavor. They are in the mustard family. And when you're removing these, you want to go all the way down to the root, and then you pull up this root. You can also eat the root, but this the root produces a chemical that will kill other plants around it, so it's called alleelopathy. And then finally we have Dame's Rocket. And Dame's Rocket, you also pull it up by the roots, and it has a beautiful flower on it that ranges from purple to pink to white. So many people brought it over because of the beauty of its flowers, but it also does quite invasive practices, and it will outcompete these native organisms. But it's really easy to pull up. Both of these species are, to remove them from your habitats to keep the spring ephemeral safe. And of course, this one's also in the mustard family, so like all mustards, they produce just a ton of seeds, so they can reproduce really quickly. Well, thank you guys for joining us for a little hike around Woldumar in spring to see some of our amazing spring ephemerals. Sorry we couldn't do this in person, but we will be posting a link that will have a PDF to our spring ephemeral brochure that goes over the species and their names and a picture, so that you can go out and enjoy the spring ephemerals and the flowers and get a great hike in. Woldumar is a private nonprofit with a mission to educate people about the natural environment, and we are a great resource for this greater Lansing community, and we take that really seriously. So we appreciate all the support we've seen by our community during this time, and we're looking forward to when we can be open again for in-person programming. But thank you so much for all your support. We are a membership organization, so consider being a member if you aren't already, because that's the greatest way to support us. And if you already are a member, thank you, and we appreciate your continued support. From all of us at Woldumar, have a great day.